Before we begin, I want to welcome you to our channel. For those who are new here, our mission is to share genuine Christian testimonies from around the world, spreading the powerful message of God's kingdom. We focus on stories about Jesus, the afterlife, heaven and hell, and other Bible-related topics, bringing them to you in engaging story form twice or 3 times a week. We invite you to become a member of this family by subscribing to our channel. God bless you as you do so. Today's experience was sent to us by Sister Fidelia Kemble. God revealed to her a shocking truth about the social media that everyone needs to listen and watch out. Kindly stay to the end to fully understand her experience. My name is Fidelia Kemble. My addiction to social media started slowly, just a few minutes after waking up, scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, but those minutes turned into hours. I couldn't eat breakfast without snapping a picture first, couldn't sit in silence without refreshing my feed. I was always searching for something: validation, entertainment, or maybe just a distraction. Notifications were like a drug, each like or comment giving me a fleeting sense of happiness that quickly faded, leaving me wanting more. Even when I was with friends, my phone was always in my hand, stealing my attention. I found myself rehearsing the perfect captions for pictures I hadn't even taken yet, or crafting posts that would get the most engagement. Sometimes I would spend entire afternoons editing a single picture, making sure it looked just right before sharing it. My parents noticed first. They would try to talk to me, but I'd be so absorbed in my screen that I barely heard them. My dad would call my name 3 for times before I'd look up. He once said, "Emily, you're not even here anymore." And he was right. Even when I was physically present, mentally, I was somewhere else, lost in the digital world. My friends started to pull away too. They'd invite me out, and I'd either decline or show up, only to spend the entire time glued to my phone. I wasn't truly connecting with anyone. One day, my best friend sat me down and said, "Emily, we miss you. It feels like you're not really with us anymore." Her words stung, but I brushed them off. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that everyone used social media. I tried to stop. I really did. There were moments when I would look at myself in the mirror and think, this isn't normal. I would set goals for myself: no phone after 10 p.m., or only an hour of social media per day. But every time I would fail. I'd tell myself, just one more scroll. And then suddenly, it was midnight, and I had been on my phone for hours. I even tried deleting the apps once. I remember how proud I felt hitting that delete button. But the pride didn't last long. By the next day, I had re-downloaded them all. The urge to check my feed, to see what everyone was doing, was overwhelming. It was like something inside me was pulling me back, and I couldn't resist. On the 28th of April, 2024, after yet another evening lost to endless scrolling, I finally collapsed into bed, utterly exhausted. I lay on my bed to take little rest. While on the bed, my eyes were still open when I noticed as though my room was gradually changing. Like I wasn't sleeping. Instantly, I found myself in a strange place. A cold, dark landscape that seemed to stretch on forever. The air was heavy, thick with an eerie silence that pressed down on me. I felt alone, but at the same time I knew I wasn't. There was something, or rather someone, watching. As I walked deeper into the darkness, I began to see men and women, moving slowly, almost lifelessly, in a long procession. Each one was bound in heavy chains that clinked with every step they took. Their faces were covered with thick, dark veils, so I couldn't see their expressions, but their posture told me everything. They were hunched over, weighed down, yet they walked without resistance, as if the chains had become a natural part of their existence. I wanted to scream, to tell them to stop, to ask why they were so willing to remain in chains. But they couldn't hear me, or maybe they just didn't care. Ahead of them, in the distance, was a massive pit. I couldn't see the bottom, but I could feel the emptiness that lay beyond. A terrifying void that seemed to pull everything toward it. The men and women walked toward it steadily, their movements mechanical, like they were sleepwalking toward their own destruction. Not one of them hesitated. Not one of them turned around. They moved as if this was where they belonged. My heart raced as I watched them get closer to the edge. I wanted to help them, to wake them up, but I was frozen in place, powerless to stop what was happening. As I stood there, paralyzed with fear and confusion, a bright light suddenly appeared beside me. It was so intense that I had to shield my eyes. When the light softened, I saw an angel standing before me, radiant and powerful, yet calm. His presence brought an overwhelming sense of peace, even in the midst of the nightmare surrounding me. He spoke without moving his lips, his voice echoing in my mind. "Do you see them?" he asked, gesturing toward the people in chains, still marching toward the pit. I nodded, unable to speak, my heart heavy with dread. These men and women represent the true state of the world, in the spirit. Many are bound by chains they cannot see, moving through life without understanding the destruction ahead of them. They are blinded by their own desires, by the comforts and distractions of this world, unaware of the path they are on. I realized that what I was witnessing wasn't just some random dream. It was a reflection of reality. People were enslaved to something they didn't even recognize, walking blindly toward their own downfall. He let me know that the chains I see are not made of metal, but of something far more insidious: social media. It has captured the hearts and minds of so many, pulling them away from truth, from purpose, and from God. They live their lives for it, and it is leading them to destruction. I felt a lump in my throat as the angel's words sunk in. He was talking about me. My obsession, my addiction, it wasn't just a bad habit. It was a spiritual chain, binding me and countless others. And worst of all, I had been too blind to see it. He then showed me something, I don't know how, but I see the exact thing begin speaking to me concerning what becomes the people and society that value social media more than him. I saw social media will create a world where people no longer know how to connect with each other in truth and sincerity. Families will drift apart, friendships will dissolve, and genuine conversations will become rare. People will prefer the company of their screens over the warmth of human connection, and loneliness will spread like a disease. I saw a rampant spread of falsehood. Lies and deception will flourish, and the line between truth and fiction will blur. People will believe whatever fits their desires, feeding on information designed to manipulate and control them. The truth will be buried beneath waves of misinformation, and society will lose its moral compass. I felt a sinking feeling in my chest. I had seen it happen, scrolling through endless posts filled with twisted narratives and misleading content. I had shared some of it myself without even thinking twice. The angel was showing me that this wasn't just harmless. It was poison, seeping into the minds of millions. He then showed me the last thing social media is set to cause in people's life. I saw how there will be the loss of identity. Social media will strip people of who they truly are. They will define themselves by likes, followers, and trends. Their sense of worth will no longer come from within or from God, but from the fleeting approval of strangers. They will lose themselves in the noise, forgetting who they were created to be. Tears welled up in my eyes. I had been living this disaster for years, measuring my value by the attention I received online, constantly comparing myself to others, always feeling like I wasn't enough. The angel was showing me what I had become, and it was devastating. A wave of sorrow crashed over me, and I felt my knees buckle. I wanted to scream, to apologize, to do something to change it all, but I was paralyzed by the weight of what I had seen. How had I let it come to this? How had I fallen so far without even realizing it? I wept, feeling broken, lost, and terrified of what the future held. Not just for me, but for everyone who was bound by this addiction. The angel let me know that addiction to social media is not the life I was created for. God has been calling me, yet I have turned your heart away, consumed by a world that offers only emptiness. Now is the time to seek him, to listen to his voice, and to pursue his will with all your heart. The angel told me this and quote, "Let go of the chains. Turn away from the life you've built around social media, for it is stealing your time, your energy, and your purpose. You are living for the world's approval, but it will never satisfy you. Only in seeking God will you find the peace and fulfillment your soul craves. You must live for God and God alone. His will for your life is far greater than anything you can find on a screen. Surrender to him and he will guide you. Let his purpose be your focus, and you will experience a freedom that no social media platform can ever offer." As the angel's final words echoed in my mind, everything around me began to blur and fade. The darkness, the chains, the pit, it all dissolved into a bright, blinding light. Suddenly, I found myself back in my room, my body jolting awake as if I had been pulled from the depths of a dream. My heart was racing, and I could still feel the weight of the vision pressing down on me. Rebuilding my life wasn't easy. I had spent years immersed in the world of social media, and it took time to detach from it. But with each day, I felt stronger. My relationships, which had suffered because of my obsession, began to heal. I reconnected with my family and friends, no longer distracted by the constant pull of my phone. Most importantly, I felt closer to God than ever before. I wasn't living for the approval of others anymore. I was living for him, for his will and purpose. It was a journey, but I knew that as long as I kept seeking him, I would find true freedom and fulfillment. My experience was not just for me, but for everyone who has unknowingly fallen into the trap of social media addiction. Many of us are walking in chains, blindly heading toward destruction without realizing the dangers ahead. Social media, while useful in moderation, can easily become a tool of distraction, leading us away from God's purpose for our lives. I urge my fellow Christians to heed this warning. Don't let yourselves be bound by something that steals your time, your peace, and your connection with God. It's time to examine our priorities. Are we spending more time on our phones than we are in prayer? Are we more concerned with how others perceive us online than with how God sees us? We cannot serve two masters. Social media must never take the place of our relationship with God. Let's put him first in everything we do, seeking his approval above all else, and allowing him to guide our lives, free from the chains of worldly distractions. Instead of letting social media consume us, we can use it as a platform to spread God's message. As Christians, we have the opportunity to bring light into the dark corners of the online world. Let's make a conscious effort to embrace evangelism, sharing the gospel, encouraging others, and uplifting those who are lost. By putting God at the center of our online presence, we can use these tools for his glory, leading others to Christ while guarding our hearts against the dangers of addiction. All right, friends, this brings us to end of today's experience. Kindly like and share this video with your friends and families. Kindly subscribe to our channel and turn on your notification bell icon to be the first to get updated anytime we upload a new experience sent to us. Remain blessed.